In February 2003, a team of Italian thieves stood outside the Antwerp Diamond Center in Belgium. Behind a 2-ton steel door sat $100 million in loose diamonds, gold, and cash. It was a vault protected by a 10-digit combination lock, magnetic field sensors, Doppler radar, and seismic shock detectors. Security experts considered it physically impenetrable. The thieves bypassed the entire system using supplies from a local hardware store. They blinded the infrared heat detectors by spraying the lenses with $2 hairspray. They covered the light sensors with plain electrical tape. To trick the magnetic door sensors, they built a custom wooden bracket to hold the magnets together as the vault swung open. They emptied 123 safety deposit boxes, walking out with $100 million. They never fired a single bullet. They never triggered a single alarm. Despite their mechanical brilliance, they were still bound by the laws of a physical heist. Because the act was strictly illegal, they had to hide in the shadows, constantly running from international authorities. If you want to extract wealth on a massive scale without having to hide, you cannot break the law. You have to use the law as your getaway vehicle. In 1992, currency trader George Soros looked at the European exchange rate mechanism and spotted a mathematical flaw. The British government was legally obligated by treaty to maintain the value of the pound above a specific exchange rate relative to the German mark. Soros realized the Bank of England lacked the foreign currency reserves to support that price floor. To exploit this policy gap, Soros's quantum fund borrowed billions of British pounds and aggressively sold them off for German marks. This flooded the global market, creating immense downward pressure on the value of the currency, directly challenging the central bank's artificial limit. The Bank of England spent billions trying to buy back its own money, but the market pressure was too overwhelming. On September 16th, a day known as Black Wednesday, the British government surrendered and allowed the pound to crash. Soros bought the devalued pounds back at a discount, paid off his loans, and walked away with over $1 billion in pure legal profit. This strategy of using rigid policies to hoard wealth applies to cultural assets as well. The British Museum operates as a historic vault holding billions of dollars in international heritage. Almost every famous exhibit inside these walls is the subject of an ongoing ownership dispute. In the early 19th century, the 7th Earl of Elgin removed half of the surviving marble sculptures from the Parthenon in Athens and shipped them back to Britain. Greece has formally demanded their return ever since. But the museum relies on a specific piece of legislation for its defense. The British Museum Act of 1963 explicitly forbids the institution from permanently returning major artifacts once they enter the collection. By passing laws that prohibit the release of foreign artifacts, institutions create an unbreakable legal shield. They convert historical acquisitions and long-standing disputes into permanent, legitimate ownership. To see how this legal shielding works in modern corporate finance, look at Ugland House in the Cayman Islands. On paper, this modest 5-story building serves as the official corporate headquarters for over 20,000 international corporations. These companies use this address to execute an accounting strategy called transfer pricing. A massive parent company in America or Europe takes its most valuable assets, things like software licenses, patents, and brand logos, and sells them to its own offshore shell company inside this zero-tax jurisdiction for pennies. Then, the domestic parent company turns around and pays billions of dollars in royalties back to its offshore subsidiary for the right to use that exact same software and branding. This zeroes out the domestic company's local profits, erasing their tax obligations, while billions accumulate in offshore bank accounts untouched by authorities. It is an invisible paperwork illusion. Trillions of dollars vanish from public tax grids and flow into dark offshore accounts every decade, entirely within the bounds of the law. We see a similar extraction strategy in consumer healthcare. When a pharmaceutical company invents a life-saving medication, they get a government patent for 20 years. Standard market logic dictates that once that patent expires, generic manufacturers can finally produce the drug, and the price drops by up to 90%. To prevent that loss of revenue, corporate legal teams use a tactic known as evergreening. Instead of letting the original patent expire, they file secondary patents for minor, non-therapeutic changes. They patent the shape of the pill, the coating material, or a slight change in how the dosage is delivered. Layering these secondary patents extends the company's legal monopoly for decades past the original timeframe. Any generic manufacturer attempting to enter the market is immediately buried in endless legal warfare. These global conglomerates manage to extract billions of dollars from healthcare systems without having to invent a better medicine. They simply build a legal fortress around an old product. The Italian thieves who cracked the Antwerp Diamond Center were ingenious, but they were ultimately playing a game designed by someone else. They had to outsmart a system built to catch them. Global conglomerates, pharmaceutical giants, and billionaire traders don't play the game. They write the rulebook itself. The most lucrative robberies on Earth don't involve cracking a bank vault, breaking into a museum, or hacking a government network. They rely on legal technicalities and psychological illusions. If you analyze the history of modern finance and international trade, you quickly realize that the largest fortunes are rarely built by following standard market rules. True wealth extraction isn't about breaking the law, it's about finding the blind spots in the system and rewriting the rules of wealth entirely in broad daylight.